Way back in here.
We're on 16? Yeah, it's you gotta make it 17. Not too far. We'll turn the opposite direction so we run out of staples. We should probably go into 17. I'm sure we're going to 17 tonight because we just got one. Yeah, you can.
I'll tell her you're being, you're hugging.
Handing out chapter 17 because we've just got one more section on 16 and that's done. All right, we're at the last one here on page 122, the 7th vial. Any questions before we get started on that one?
I was sitting on my swing outside and I seen all the storm coming. And I was thinking to myself, what would happen if this time with rain, fire starts coming out of the sky and brimstone. I mean, yeah, we could be, it ain't gonna be little,
No.
it ain't gonna be.
No, I'm trying to remember now if it was, maybe thinking of another time that the hailstone was like 100 pounds or something. Someplace there's a specific weight given to them, and it's like an unbelievable amount, something falling from the sky. Yeah, exactly.
My grandmother had, my uncle would pick them up. They had a hailstorm and they were the size of golf balls. Destroyed vehicles.
Oh yeah, yeah. Can you imagine getting hit with even one of those?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's when that happens. It's gonna be something else. All right, then the 7th file, Revelation 16, 17 through 21.
Yeah.
I was looking for it and I couldn't find it, and I finally found it. So just to go back on 13, where it talks about the frogs coming out of the mouth of the dragon, beast, and the false prophet.
Mm-hmm.
So is that like a bunch of false prophets going out throughout the world, or what is that supposed to be?
If it states, I think, isn't it talking about the demonic spirits? I think it says something like that, doesn't it? The evil spirits, like frogs, or well, how's it stated there?
So there are spirits of devils working miracles which go forth unto the kings of the earth, and bring the whole world together then to battle. So it's talking about there's spirits of devils working miracles. So it goes away, okay, well, these like false prophets that are going out and they're being used by these demons, or
I think it's the demons that are doing these things then people think that it's the I forget who it is stated, the ones that they're
Set
calling
all
the
three.
demons.
So the false prophet, the beast, and the dragon.
Right. So the people are thinking that they're doing these things, the false prophet, but it's the demonic activity, the evil spirits that are responsible for it. Let's see, verse 17 and through 21. This is the last of the vials. It says, "And the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air. And there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, 'It is done.' And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth. So mighty an earthquake and so great. And the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And there fell upon man a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent." That's where I was saying, I knew there was a specific weight given. I don't have notes here. Some of you probably have notes in your Bible saying what that weight is. It says, "And men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, for the plague thereof was exceeding great."
100 pounds.
I thought it was 100 pounds. So 100-pound piece of ice falling from the sky.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wonder if the insurance companies are going to cover that.
I would want an earthquake, much less.
Yeah, so earthquake strong enough that the islands fled away. I think tsunamis and things like that, where the earthquakes that are in the ocean, when it just rises up like that, they'll disappear. The mountains are not going to be found. They're going to come. It says no earthquake since has been on the face of the earth, and I know there have been some pretty incredible earthquakes that have been experienced. The city's going to be divided into 3 parts as a result of it.
So are they talking about Jerusalem that's going to be divided into 3 parts?
No, it's the Babylon, which whether that's, I've always said, whether they actually give it that name or if that's just representative of that city that's going to be the epicenter of the Antichrist dominion.
And that's where the new temple is going to be built.
Well, that will be built in Jerusalem.
Oh.
The new temple will be.
Oh.
But they're going to rebuild, and the Roman Empire is basically what it is. They're going to try to resurrect that, and through that, it's going to be that new city that's going to be. I don't know the word to give it, the main city of the world, basically. All trade and finances and everything is going to be done, but that's going to be the home area of the Antichrist and the demonic activity. It's going to all proceed out of that city. And spiritually speaking, it's Babylon. Whether they will actually build that city, and it wouldn't surprise me. You'd think, well, how stupid would they be to do that? But that's just the arrogance of man. It would not surprise me at all if they actually call it Babylon. But that's more of a spiritual reference than anything. But like I said, it wouldn't surprise me.
And look at verse 20 though, where it talks about every island fled away and the mountains were not found.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's that earthquake. Literally, from that description, you would think is the whole earth is going to quake from that one. I think that one will be felt worldwide.
It would almost have to be.
To have to do that kind of destruction, yeah. Yep, you would think so. That's can't even imagine. Anybody ever been in an earthquake? I was once.
Only feeling that one year when you had some rumblings in Indiana, I was like, okay, what's that? You know, but it wasn't anything like an earthquake.
Well, we were in Arkansas one time when I was a kid, and we felt it. Where my mom grew up was on the riverboat that was literally on the river, floating on the logs, and we still felt it. But not like you would have if you would have been on land. I mean, it was strong enough that they were in the stores in town that shook stuff off the shelf. And I remember the dishes in the cabin. Such a weird, I mean, just the feeling. I mean, that's not even the kind where buildings are collapsing and stuff like that. It was really weird.
I remember my mom talking about. She's like, I can handle being in a tornado because you can see that it's coming, everything else. She said, when you're in the middle of an earthquake, there's nowhere to go. When you see the ground split open in front of you, because I guess when she was living in Mexico, they were doing earthquakes then. And she's like, you have nowhere to go when that opens up. There's no warning. Just all of a sudden, there it is. Yeah. No, thank you.
Nope, that's how it'll be here. Then the hail. On top of it, well, you can see where this vial is poured out into the air. Other ones were in specific locations where this is just going to kind of encompass everything. So everybody's going to experience something of this one. All right, let's read here. The seventh angel pours out his vial into the air. This is the last of 21 judgments. Think about that. 21. And some of them have multiple effects when those are done. So it's more than 21 things that are happening. 21 judgments which are invoked upon mankind during the Great Tribulation. They are the 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and 7 vials. Accompanying the 7th vial judgment, a great voice is heard coming out of the temple saying, "It is done." This indicates that the final act of God has been accomplished, preceding the second coming of Christ. There has been much speculation as to why the vial was poured out into the air. Many have thought it to be a direct reflection upon the increasing importance mankind has placed on space travel into the atmospheric heavens. In any event, the results of the 7th vial will bring about catastrophic events occurring on Earth's surface below. In comparison to the final seal, trumpet, and vial, each is introduced by the sound of voices, thunderings, and lightnings, and is followed by a great earthquake. According to the American Collegiate Dictionary, an earthquake is a vibration or movement of a part of the Earth's surface due to the faulting of rocks, volcanic forces, etc. 3 of the synoptic Gospels make reference to predictions that earthquakes in diverse places will mark the beginning of sorrow or great tribulation. John speaks of a great earthquake occurring with the loosing of the 6th seal. Lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. At the death and resurrection of the 2 witnesses, 1/10 of the city of Jerusalem and 7,000 men are destroyed as a result of a great earthquake. There are several earthquakes mentioned in Bible history. Jesus predicted many earthquakes in the last days and declared them a sign of his return. This great earthquake of Revelation 16:18 is declared to be of greater magnitude than any and all previous earthquakes. The city of Jerusalem is divided into 3 parts by the impact. So he does say Jerusalem. I was thinking it was Babylon.
He did. Scripture said Babylon. Great Babylon.
It says that, and the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and great Babylon came in remembrance before God. See, from that statement, I had thought that it was the city Babylon as well. let's see. It says, and many of the cities of the world are said to fall, and the islands are said to have fled away, and the mountains were not found. The mighty and violent convulsion will be witnessed throughout the entire world as the times of the Gentiles come to a close. Great Babylon comes in remembrance before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. The ecclesiastical aspect of Babylon is destroyed by the 10 kings. All of these unprecedented occurrences during the seventh vial mark the close of the Great Tribulation and consummate the times of the Gentiles. Israel will at long last be liberated from the Gentiles. The earth will undergo yet further change than that of the earthquake, for great hailstones, the weight of a talent, about 100 pounds each, will be rained from heaven. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light. And the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. In Revelation 19:11, John beholds the opening of the heavens and a white horse. And he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True. And in righteousness he doth judge and make war. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. The great end-time battle, when the armies of the earth clash with the armies from heaven at the second coming of Christ, is called Armageddon, and is symbolized in Revelation 19:17-21. The second coming will result in the binding of Satan for 1,000 years in the bottomless pit. A world theocracy will be installed, wherein Christ will be supreme civil ruler, and as kings and priests, the saints will rule under his divine commission. Let's see. Trying to go back here and see what we... I'm not sure why he's calling the city the same that it is Jerusalem.
Yeah, I'd always understood it to be Jerusalem. That's why I was wondering.
Well, unless there must be a reference someplace
That's
else.
what I was about to see.
Because from 17 through 21, it's not stated there. I can see where it could be something different. That they said Babylon came into remembrance, so that doesn't mean that it has to be actually the city Babylon. But it doesn't say Jerusalem there either, so there's got to be another reference someplace.
It says chapter 14, verse 8 and 9.
Well, that's the first time.
Right,
that's a separate earthquake.
Right, that's what it referenced back to.
And that was Jerusalem. But I was thinking that this one was the city of Babylon. Not sure on that one now. Yeah, so that reference back to the other mention that's a separate action. It's not the same one. Any other questions on anything from chapter 16?
So if we look at it beforehand, we see that probably 2/3 of the population.
From the seventh.
From what we've read so far.
Oh, you mean up to this point?
Yeah.
From all 21 of the.
Right.
I think it's more than that.
I think it's more than that. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's some places where how many times do we see a third and a third? So you take a third away, and then you take a third of that. I mean, that's actually more than. And that I think that happens at least 3 times, if not more, if I'm not mistaken. And then there's other places where it doesn't say how many people are killed from some of the things. So now that the overall population takes
Well, the population that's left are basically not going to change their mind.
Correct. Yep. Because all along people have been, getting it and turning,
right.
To Christ, to God, accepting Christ. But yeah, as you keep going, and those that aren't, at this point, well, we can't say all of them haven't.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be those that enter into the millennial period, and those that have not turned to God, they're not going to enter into the millennial period. So again, how many is this? There's no way of telling. We don't know. What's the world? You'd have to know what the world population. First of all, even if you can go through and figure out this, you'd have to know the world population at the time that this starts. There's no way to know that. Where we're going to be at the point that begins.
So then, okay, just to backtrack what you were just saying. So we know those, if they happen to survive to, the point that Christ returns, that if they accepted the mark of the beast, we just know they're
done.
They're done. Okay, those that, if by chance they made it this far and either accepted Christ but didn't receive the mark either, those ones are able to enter in because they didn't align themselves with Satan.
Correct.
Just wanted to guess.
Correct. Yeah, because after the Battle of Armageddon, there's going to be before going into the millennium, there's going to be a dividing
Right. I
of
remember 16.
the people then. So that's God's going to say, this is it for you. Yeah, to think to have survived
Yeah, really.
all of those things to get to that point, and then you still have rejected God at that point, so you're not getting anywhere. It's still over for you.
That would be so sad.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the people though that did? You have this mark and everything else, like, I made it.
Yep. Nope. Exactly.
There's an estimated 8 billion people in the world right now.
Right now. Yeah.
8 billion.
Yeah. That just keeps growing too. So what's it going to be? Whenever this takes place. Don't know.
Yeah, looking at verse 9, you look at our 90-degree days. Remember, scorched with great heat and blessing the name of God, which have power over these plagues.
Yep, and they do that again and again. Well, then the same thing here. We were just at. They do the same thing because of the hail. And they know exactly why it's happening, but rather than swallow their pride and accept God, nope.
We feel like that today.
Oh, for sure.
So when God says that He turned them over to a reprobate mind, is a reprobate mind more of an immoral function or action or thing?
It's a hardened heart. It's the inability to be able to accept, really, because you reject so much, and that's what happens. And God says, you can only. I've talked about this before. It's the Holy Spirit that deals with a person's heart and gets through to them. You can witness and preach, but if the Holy Spirit doesn't actually do the convincing, that's what accomplishes that. Well, if they get to the place where they sincerely mean it, and that's what I said before, we can't make that determinations because people will say what they think we want to hear in order to leave them alone. But when their heart really gets to that place, their mind really gets to that place, that when they say, I don't want to hear it, or they're rejecting it, and they really do, what can be done?
Right.
If they legitimately turn a deaf ear to the wooing of the Holy Spirit, there's no chance to get saved if that's not effective. And when they get to that place, that's when God knows, He knows when their heart's in that condition. He says, okay, there's nothing left for you. Go that way if that's what you want.
That's a hard place because, as a parent, it's hard when your kids say, it's one thing when they're little and you have that control, but when they're adults, you don't have that control. tell them and you tell them and you tell them, they still choose the wrong way.
Yeah.
There's that time you have to step back and you quit saying it because you know it's not going to be received anyway. So why waste your breath or your energy? And I can't imagine God getting to that place of why am I bothering with you because you're just not going to hear
See,
it.
and we get to that
He
point
knows.
just out of frustration. God gets to that point because he actually sees their heart and knows that that's where they're at.
I can't imagine anybody want to live in those days.
No. Well, I'd rather live there than hell.
Wipe me out.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Keep fighting this or just go straight to hell.
Yeah.
No, I'll try to.
Fighting a little bit.
All right, well, then that's it for 16 then. If no others. The destruction of ecclesiastical Babylon. That simply means the religious aspect of Babylon. Chapter 17, verses 1 and 2. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither. I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So with the appearance of the word Babylon, immediately the mind is captivated with an ancient Babylonian kingdom situated in central Mesopotamia on the river Euphrates, some 50 miles south of modern Baghdad, capital of Iraq. The mentioning of Babylon in chapters 17 and 18 has reference to the corrupt principles and practices of a mighty ecclesiastical system and a great commercial, economical, and political power. So, and that's part of what the Antichrist does to gain his power along the way is he joins with the church, and the church joins with him, and he gets the religious power in the world to pursue the other areas, and then once that's done, then he gets what he wants, and he himself turns on the church. But now this judgment is from God. So the more careful observation will reveal that each of these systems, religious and political, had its beginning with ancient Babylon. The head of fine gold recorded in the 2nd division of the book of Daniel. By carefully transcending and attaching these ancient evils into each succeeding generation, the God of this present order has managed to keep control of the kingdoms of this world, both politically and religiously. The objective of God in destroying these 2 Babylons is to abolish all forms of human government prior to the installation of the kingdom of heaven on earth. The mystical aspect of this Babylonian system is understood in the personage of the woman riding the beast, whom John makes reference to as the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. The following passages will be submitted to prove that playing the part of the harlot in the scriptural reference always relates to prospective religious fornication. For example, backsliding Israel committed adultery, and I had put her away, and given her a bill of divorce. Are ye polluted after the manner of your fathers, and commit ye whoredom after their abominations? Neither left she her whoredom brought from Egypt, for the spirit of whoredoms hath caused them to err, and they have gone a-whoring from under their God. The idolatrous and depraved woman is described by one of the 7 violent angels as sitting upon many waters. This is without doubt the same angel which introduces and shows John the holy city Jerusalem, the true bride, the Lamb's wife, as the installation of the eternal and perfect state begins. The scriptural interpretation of waters in symbolic passages represents a vast number of people. In this particular setting, the woman who represents a great religious economy is depicted as sitting upon many waters, or a populace of people whose objective is to commit spiritual fornication against the Lord and his church. So this is just the false religion of the day. Whatever religion there is, we know that it's not it's not true. The nations of the earth are said to have become drunken with the wine of her fornication. For one to become drunk with adultery or fornication involves a willful act of transgression. As in dipsomania, the craving for intoxicating drink attaches itself to an individual. So the nations have suffered with an irresistible and insatiable craving for involvement with this most corrupt and perverted ecclesiastical arrangement. We see that at the one point when it was talked about the city of Babylon being destroyed, and all the merchants of the world cried and wailed because that's where their money came from, their source of whatever they were involved in. That's where it came out of. So this is the same description, really. They were all involved for what they were getting as a result of joining forces with this. And unfortunately,
So, in some ways, 9/11, when the World Trade Center, was dilapidated, that was a center hub of commerce too, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So,
Yep, for sure. That was, nothing like what's
going to happen?
And not only what's going to happen, but what was, what they were involved in and what they're.
The magnitude, yeah.
Right, exactly. But yes, that would be similar. It says the norm of spiritual fornication speaks to the apostasy of God's own people, as is frequently described in the Old Testament. The New Testament era speaks of the church as a chaste virgin who is to be presented unto Christ sometime yet in the future. This last phase of the church end time, however, depicts a great apostate church body as having actually gone beyond the limitations and bounds of her own ecclesiastical system, involving herself with all the nations and the Antichrist. The adulterous woman has imposed, as it were, a stupefying drunkenness over the nations, subduing them into her persuasion to worship the beastly end-time ruler. Great, huh? So that's what's taking place here. The church of the day during the tribulation period. I'm just trying to think. You look at religion overall, even in our own time. There's not much that's legit, I guess is the right way to put it, or true or real.
Most of the ones that are the most popular.
Yeah, and the reason that many have gone the way that they've gone is for the same thing, just not to the extent for gain, whether it be monetary or popularity or whatever. During this time, it's specifically going to be power, money, monetary accomplishment. They're going to sell out. No surprise.
We just think like people now. It gets really, Well, even with like all the trafficking, child trafficking and stuff, that's evil. That's evil money.
Yep. Well, all of that stuff is going to be common practice. And the church is going to be, what's called the church at that time is going to be right in the middle of it.
You know there's going to be churches actively promoting the mark of the beast too. You see the stuff that's so that they promote now that's so blatantly and like there's going to be church, pastors telling their members to go get that thing.
Yeah, you got to do it. You want to eat, right? It's okay. You're all right.
But if it happened, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So what happens to it doesn't really, we talk about the church, we talk about the religions, what happens to the bigger religions like the Muslims and what happens to that group that is, worshiping somebody different than Christ?
During the tribulation time?
Yeah, what kind of working its way up through? Because really, in Revelations, it doesn't specify, it doesn't say.
No, there will be a one, just like now they're trying to do a one world economy and healthcare, and they're trying to do a one world government if they could get away with it right now. But there will be a one world religion, and the Antichrist is going to be responsible for setting that up. And I've said that before. Exactly what he's going to say or what he's going to do to appeal to all of these different groups to get them, but they are. They're going to. So that's why different one says, is it going to be the Roman Catholic Church? I have no doubt that it'll be a big part of it. I don't think it'll be called that, because just like with anything else, for people to get on board, they don't want to think that, well, I've given in and I'm joining such and such. They're going to call it who knows what. That way, well, this is a new whatever, so everybody's coming in. We're all the same.
Keep your eye on that, all this AI stuff that's coming out now. That's going to be like that. I don't know if you guys are familiar with like Klaus Schwab, the WEF, the World Economic Forum. Like they're behind all like these vaccinations and New World Order, all that stuff. And he was not long ago talking about having AI start writing like holy books, as what we call them, and religion. So they have ones that make sense
for everybody.
Yeah, they have AI start doing it.
Yep.
Yeah, I read that a while back.
Yep. It's I say that.
I don't think there'll be much pushback with like Islam and all that, because you look now, like they don't attack Islam, like all the even like Pride Month, it doesn't exist in Muslim countries. I don't know if you guys notice that.
Yeah.
They don't advertise it in like the Muslim countries and all. Like you're perfectly allowed to be a Muslim. That's fine. It's the Christian bakeries that they force to bake the cakes and all that.
Well, and it's the mild side of that right now. The soft side of that is churches are going non-denominational.
Yeah.
Even this little Park Baptist church, there's no more Baptist church.
No.
It's Park Church in the beginning, So you're going to see more of them dropping out of that mainstream identification line,
Yep. Well, that's why I said I've never had a thing because it's not going to be a group that's going as far as a denomination, but as far as belief, it'll always be Pentecostal.
Isn't it? I want to say my brother was talking about the Unitarian Church and everything's all accepted no matter what you are. It's like, okay, how can you be unified if you believe this, but you believe this, and it's all good, everybody believes something different. Where's their unity in that? You can't.
Well,
That's the soft side of what's going to happen. I mean, it's the foundation.
and think about it too, okay? Like right now, to think about that happening, it's like, how is that? But when all the Christians are gone, there's not going to be anybody that's going to support a true Christian belief. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here during this time. So there's not going to be anybody to stand for that. So everybody else, we'll compromise whatever. That's what got them to the place that they're in.
It's a lot of Christians in trouble is compromise.
That's what I'm saying, though. So after all the true Christians are raptured and are taken out of here, then for that to happen, who other than Christians really would fight against that. So the people that are here, that could be no big deal to them. Oh, everybody get along? Okay, sounds good.
But eventually, even you said the Antichrist is going to shut down religion.
Right. Once he gets that going and claims the power that he's looking to gain through that, then he's going to, the switch takes place. That's what he always does. Once you're in too deep to do anything about it, then it doesn't matter if he shows his real self. Then that's when everything's going to be geared towards worshiping him and Satan.
So
It's going to be too late at that point.
I've missed a couple of weeks doing this. Did I miss where he sets himself up as he's God? Did they already do that yet? Where in the temple, you know, it talks
We
about.
talked about the image, I think, didn't we?
Talking about the desolation of the temple. Is that when the Jews went for Petra?
I'm trying to remember now.
Somehow that I feel like I missed that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we've covered that yet or not.
Seems like we should have it at this point.
Well, now for the next few chapters, goes back to that. It's not in time order. It's going to be talking about a lot of events that will have happened during these 21.
Yeah, so I was like, we're almost to the end. We're going to miss.
Let's see what we got here. The next one's kind of long here. Do we want to start? I'll probably stop here because the 3 and 4 have quite a bit to it there. And then 5 continues right off that, so probably better to do them all together. Okay, we'll go ahead and stop there. So 17, 3, and 4 will be for next time. Yeah, right. Next week is camp, so we won't have service next Wednesday. So that if anybody that would like to go to camp can go down to camp for that Wednesday service. Some people will be going all week long, so which that's fine. Just letting everybody know. I think, other than camp, I don't think there's any announcements to.
We need to know who is going to be writing in advance. We can figure out how we're going to do.
To get them to camp?
Yeah. I know I have to, I shouldn't say he has to pick up Ruby and Jalen and, all them in Rensselaer, so I don't know if people want to meet at their house. So I would say.
Well, the only other ones over this way would be yours.
I always go down somewhere. Desserts, so I'm going down and taking my stuff down. I'm taking mine. But Jalen said today they're not sure they're ready.
Well, I talked to her on the way and she said they all need a ride.
So, like I said, other than Sherea's, I don't think there's any others over this way that would go. Since she's taking hers,
Okay.
I think you're good.
Yeah. Is Haley driving down herself or are they meeting?
I've had they go with Zeke and Monica, so I assumed.
Okay. So then they come over?
We'll figure that. We'll cut that.
Just what we had in the
We'll cut that.
So they'll have 7 kids. And and we, is